Welcome to the Radio Theology Podcast with Pastor Darren Earlywine, where you'll hear inspiring stories of people just like you, living out who they were born to be. Here's Pastor Darren.
Welcome back to another Born to Be interview here with Radio Theology, and we're excited. The past year and a half, we've been partnering together with ActivateIndy.com, and an amazing thing happening here locally in Indianapolis. If you're not in Indy, listen to the podcast. I think you can be inspired maybe to see something happen like this in your city, but we're excited about what Thrivent Financial Member Services has put together. They found 9 nonprofits that are doing great work here in Indianapolis, and then put them together because they have easy turnkey ways for people to get involved serving our city. And we know that servanthood is an absolute mechanism of maturity. It brings joy to your life, and it really makes a difference in our city. And so I'm excited today to welcome Sven Schumacher and Brady Gerganic. Man, Brady, I knew I was going to get it. Don't say it. Let me try. Gerganius. We'll just go with Sven and Brady so I don't jack up your name constantly. But you guys are with Lutheran Child and Family Services, one of the longest running and oldest ministry nonprofits in town. We're going to talk about that today and the work that you guys do. But welcome to the Born to Be interview, guys. So Sven, I can tell you're not from Indiana.
No, I'm from Germany, but I came in 1985 to Indianapolis and went to Butler University and got a master's degree there and have worked with children's issues, mainly psychiatric issues, all this time. And for the last nearly 25 years at Lutheran Child and Family Services in several different positions, but mainly taking care of children's issues, of kids that are abused, neglected, traumatized. And it's a terrific ministry that we have.
So is that what brought you to Indy, to Butler, was college?
It was an exchange program for social workers with the IU School of Social Work, and then I somehow stayed here for longer.
And you're CEO there at Lutheran Child and Family Services.
Exactly.
25 years. And Brady, you've been with them for 6 years now?
6.5, yes, that's correct.
But and you're not from Indiana, but grew up in North Carolina?
Yep, good old Hickory, North Carolina.
Right on. Well, what brought you to Indy?
So prior to working at LCFS, I was a high school religion teacher at a Lutheran high school in Baltimore, Maryland. After doing that for 10 years, I kind of wanted to change, and so my wife actually grew up in New Palestine.
Okay.
And so I saw the job posted at LCFS, and I applied to that and met Sven, and we've been working together ever since, and it's been great.
We're going to get to know you guys and your stories a little bit more as we talk, but I want to jump in, and somebody may be saying, hey, I'm not from Indy. I'm listening to this interview. I'm in Texas or Arizona or Oregon, or I am here in Indianapolis, and I've heard of Lutheran Child and Family Services, but give us kind of the if you will, the elevator, pitch of what are you guys doing? What are you about here in town, Sven?
Our biggest program is a children's home, and we have many different programs within this, but we take care of kids that are abused and neglected. They come from all over our state of Indiana, and actually we have kids even coming from Illinois that receive intensive treatment services that we have organized together with a community hospital network. And it's a very intensive program in terms of getting the root causes of their trauma experiences, help them with education, have a safe place for them to be, because that's where many of the kids come from. They come from hard places and hard situations. And so we are that place for them to improve and to get a good new base to move on. Many of the kids, interestingly, go back to families, so we are working intensely with their families too, because we just want to make sure that they are not coming back into directly the same situation they came out. And most of these children, they want a family. They think it's okay to have a social worker, but what they really want is a family and to have people they can trust around them. And so that's what we are trying to do. Now, we have some of the kids, they don't maybe have a family to go to, and so we have a wonderful program that is in a new group home right on our campus, the Trinity House. And these are young people that we work with on independent living to just move them along greater opportunities to live on their own. And I think many of us know that 18 is a tough place to be basically on your own. And so we work very hard and had received some great successes there with that group too.
I love it. Brady, how long is a child usually with Lutheran Family Services? Is there an average timeline where you guys get to work with a child?
Yeah, so the kids that are in what we call the more private, secure facility, they're there about 6 or 7 months on average. The boys that Sven was referring to that live in the group home, those are a little bit longer because they're then graduating from that program to, say, independent living. So they might be there for a year or even 2 years. But in general, for the bulk of our program, it's about 6 to 7 months.
Okay. And how many students a year are you guys working with?
On an average, we have on our campus in the different programs about 70 kids
each day.
So we touch the life of 150, 160 kids. In addition to it, we have an intensive home-based program. This is where it's kind of a unique idea. The social workers go actually to the families' homes and in their communities and work with them there rather than saying, hey, you have to come at 9 o'clock to my office. What is very, very difficult for many folks to do. And so we work with them, and we have maybe another 100 to 150 families that we work with them in that kind of setting. So,
Brady, talk about, you're the spiritual life director there, and what does that look like as far as you're meeting physical, tangible needs that the students have, safety. There's counseling. I'm sure actually having something to eat and the care and the safety. What does the spiritual development side of that look like?
Yeah, so we really take that approach. That's one of the ideas that, whenever I came in 6.5 years ago, LCFS was doing this before my arrival, but they really kind of bolstered it by bringing somebody in full time. We really look at wellness as being the whole person, including the spiritual health of a person. And so we don't want to just treat one side of wellness or two sides. We want to treat the entire person.
Yeah.
And so in that way, obviously we come from a Christian background, a Lutheran background, to be even more kind of direct. But at the same time, we want every child that desires to grow spiritually or to kind of get that base under them, we want to help them achieve that. And so in our case, I meet with each of the new kids that comes in one-on-one just to kind of learn about who they are, kind of where they come from, but then also, too, to figure out kind of where they're at spiritually. What's the importance that faith and spirituality plays in their life? And we're about to add on to that to then say, what is the role of faith and spirituality in the life of the family so that they're well taken care of too? And so then through that, weekly chapel services are provided voluntarily for the residents to come to. Again, if they want a Bible, we can give them a Bible. Then just kind of that. And then there's that whole kind of one-to-one aspect where they can meet with me and talk with me, and they've got questions, so they can then kind of learn and grow in that. And then obviously, too, if they are of a different religion, we want to respect that and then sort of support them in that way, too.
That's awesome. What I know that part of why we want to get this interview out there is that just to continue to bolster people's opportunities with activateindia.com and get involved. What does it look like for somebody to come alongside you guys as far as serving and helping out there at Luther Family Child Services?
We have a long tradition in activating people in the community because we know that professionals are not just the only answer for many of the challenges, especially many of the trauma situations that kids have come through. So we have an extremely professional team from Community Hospital that works on those type of issues. But then we know that there's a large desire of the kids to what I sometimes call normal people, to be touched by them. And so we have a great program that Brady can talk a little bit more about it. But we have had volunteers or women's auxiliaries already 100 years ago that opened up the opportunity for people in the community to be part of the solution of some of our very, very tough issues when it comes to abuse and neglect of children. And I think that's great. Of course, there are some minimum requirements. We can talk about them a little bit later. But in general, we are very, very excited to have people be engaged with the young people. And the amazing thing is the young people really enjoy it. Yeah. They are looking forward to these opportunities. And it's important for the staff too. One of the things that Brady talked earlier about is the issue of the spiritual health or the spiritual well-being of the children, but we are focusing on to the spiritual well-being and health of our staff too, because it's probably one of the toughest jobs in our community to work with these kids.
Yeah. Well, I just think, you watch, and we watch the news, you read Twitter, whatever it is, and you see a lot of the problems and the ills that our culture, that our city has. And I think sometimes we get overwhelmed of other than praying, what could I do?
Right.
And, and somebody may be in a career where it's like, I'm not going to go to college and become a professional counselor or social worker, but this is a really, really tangible way where you could just relationally show love to a kid, come alongside what you guys are already doing, and by loving and being able to help change the life of a kid, there's a lot of ways you're going to be able to affect the future culture of our city in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's one of to Sven's point earlier. That's one of the things that we really appreciate about having some of the volunteers that come in. Again, as he said, it's not just kind of a walk in the door and help type place. There are some quote vetting that has to be done and so forth. But when the folks come in, it's very transformational for the child to have somebody who's not paid, who's not a professional, somebody who will just frankly listen to the young person, to let them kind of tell their story or to vent their frustrations or whatever, or to share their needs. But then on the same side, as we know from volunteering, it's very transformational for the volunteer to then come in and to hear the stories, to work in this environment, and to leave going, wow, that was only an hour and a half, and that somewhat changed me, or at least it opened a door that I didn't even know existed. So it's really a neat opportunity. It's a neat thing that way.
And there's more information. If you want to get involved serving at Lutheran Family and Child Services, it's simple. You just go to activateindy.com, follow the process there. Like Sven and Brady said, there is a short vetting process that you'd go through, but your journey is going to start at activateindy.com. I want to encourage you guys to go there. And guys, we've gotten some of the high-level understanding of what you guys do. I want to turn the corner a little bit to you guys individually, because I love that we're partnering with so many great nonprofits this year. I love the mission that you guys are about in our city. But I'd love for people to kind of just to get to know your guys' heart and the journey of God leading you to where you guys are at. And that's something we talk about a lot on Radio Theology and here on the Born to Be interview, is that we believe that God has created everybody on purpose and for a purpose. And I'm sure that's something you help these students and these kids understand and discover as they're there at Luther. But for you, Sven, kind of take us back for you. If you moved halfway around the world to pursue this college education and now have been in this role for 25 years. Take us back maybe to the beginning. Where did you begin to sense that maybe God had created you on purpose and it could have something to do with tackling some of the social ills of our world?
I grew up in Germany at a time when people were very highlighting and putting under the microscope issues of society. And of course, there are many different ways to get involved. One could become a minister. One could become a doctor. I decided to become a social worker. And social work gives a lot of options to be involved with many different groups. And I have always been interested in young people and helping them and their families. Was always seeing that as a connection with the child in a family, and to help families there. And so I was from early on very, very excited about it, to be in a position where you can form your community, and to become active. Now, I
was
grown up in Germany.
Was your family involved in this kind of?
No, they were not. No, I'm probably the very first person in my family and I'm actually the only person in my family that is. I have 4 other siblings. They all do other things, from law to computers to masonry, and I'm the only one that is a social worker. But I have always seen this as an opportunity to engage in the community and to be part of and making changes, maybe on a very small level. I, of course, grew up in a country that is not as religious as maybe some aspects here of our life in the Midwest.
Sure.
And I think many of these things have grown for me personally. Of course, in Germany, you're either Catholic or Lutheran.
Mm-hmm.
in at least when I grew up.
Yeah.
And our family coming from northern Germany, you're automatically Lutheran. So, but religion in Germany plays a different role than it is in place in this country. And so I have had a tremendous opportunity at Lutheran Child and Family Services in this faith-based organization to grow and to have colleagues like Brady to be along with, to have pastors. And so that has been a wonderful added opportunity that I probably didn't see when I was 16 years old and thinking that I wanted to become a social worker.
Yeah. Can you think back to, Sven, was there a moment, maybe a couple that you can go back early on and when you thought, like, maybe it was a relationship with a mentor or an experience, at school or like something that marked you, you were like, this is the kind of difference I want to make, or this is the direction I want to go. Do you have a moment?
Yeah, I think what actually happened was interesting for me. I lived in a small town in the countryside, and there was nothing going on really for young people. And so we did things ourselves. We wanted to have a little youth center in our county seat of about 11,000 people in southern Germany, and we said we started this initiative, and we talked to the city, and there were other adults that came along with us, and so we finally got our youth center. And then, of course, the question was, what are you going to do there? Now that's when we were first made aware of social work, and social workers could help, the youth workers could help, and I thought, wow, this is really something interesting to maybe see this even as a career. I didn't really know that as much, and social work in this country and in Germany has grown since then in terms of its professional outlook on issues. But I already got my undergraduate in social work in Germany and worked in a small town, mainly with youth from Turkey and from Greece and Italy that came with their families as workers to Germany, and always enjoyed it.
I love that, Sven, and that's one thing we always start with guests here on the Born to Be interview is realizing that God's call in your life, it's already in you, and it's in you from early on. If you think about, there was probably a handful of kids that helped put that youth center together,
exactly. And
probably none of them have followed through and become a social worker. Like there was something within you, like a tuning fork of the soul that went off that thought, there's something about this I want to do. And if you're still in your life right now, maybe a next step for you is to actually get involved serving with ActivateIndy.com and with what's going on at Lutheran Child and Family Services, because maybe you're still looking for kind of that tuning fork moment and coming alongside an amazing organization like this and making a difference, maybe to be one of those monumental and kind of watershed moments for you. Brady, what about you, man?
Yeah, so I have a long, I was telling this to a coworker just the other day, I have a long history of my grandmother's side of the family becoming like teachers and pastors and so forth. But she did not. Oddly enough, she ended up working at an orphanage back in North Carolina. And then so none of my family, on my dad's side, they didn't become church workers. And so it was kind of an interesting road for me to find myself on. I remember, though, I was living at home, going to a community college, studying accounting. And I had no kind of other ideas except to study accounting, except that I thought, as I was about to finish that program, I thought, man, sitting in a cubicle like at the age of 19 with an associate's degree doing accounting didn't seem like what I really wanted to be doing, but it's what I knew and it's what I could do.
So you had abilities in it. You could do it.
Oh, I could do it. Oh, for sure. It was what I was. Yeah, it was one of my more natural gifts. And so my youth worker at the church that I was attending, he said, I need an extra chaperone on a youth trip. Would you want to go? And yeah, sure, I'm up for a trip, right? I'm always up for a trip, right, Sven? Definitely. So I went, I came back, and it was a nice weekend, and he called me into his office a couple weeks later, and he said, have you ever considered church work? And I said, no, not really. He's like, I want you to check it out. He's like, I want you to come visit me out at this college in Nebraska. So I did, and that was kind of this launching point, to be invited to be a part of a youth experience, to be a youth leader for the weekend. And then here we are. I mean, that's probably been almost 20-some years ago, and here we are today. So it's been kind of a fun ride.
I think it's amazing that what I'm hearing when you're talking there, the thing that is jumping out to me is the power of invitation.
Yeah.
Of seeing potential in someone and inviting them into to a journey, inviting them into a calling. And I know there has to be story after story after story of that's what you guys are doing at Lutheran Family Services, coming alongside these kids and helping them dream again. You know what I mean? Inviting them into a bigger story than they've experienced. And I mean, maybe I love hearing a bit of your guys' story. Is there a story that could jumps into your mind or your heart right now about a kid that you've been able to walk through and see that same kind of, maybe that in 20 years they're going to say, hey, they're getting interviewed for a podcast. They're going to say, there's this guy, Brady, you know what I mean? And we had this moment. Tell me a story like that.
So there's a couple that kind of jump out to me as you ask that question. One is, I remember when I first started back in 2013, and it might have been that next year in 14, there was a girl that had just come from shelter in Kokomo, and you could just tell that she was kind of done with this lifestyle, not with life, but she was done with kind of going through the system, as we like to call it. And so it was really kind of fun to watch her, attend chapel and to just talk with her and to kind of see her grow. And then as she left, you could just tell that she was just going to go do some really wonderful things back home. And she was one of the kids that was able to go back home. As you said, Sven, like not all of them get to or can, but she was one that did. And so I'm kind of, in the back of my mind, I'm kind of paying attention for her to not to come back to us, but to see her name kind of come up somewhere. Because I just feel like that there's some big things that are going to happen for her because she did kind of take that side of life and kind of say, I'm done with this negative side. I want to focus on something better. And for her, at least in this case, it was, she wanted to get kind of spiritually right with life, and she took that very seriously.
Yeah. Sven, what about you?
And over 25 years, I have seen a lot of kids, and we have had some amazing success stories. We have sometimes some tough stories too that don't work out this well. But when I'm in the community, I often over the years have somebody saying, "Hey, are you Mr. Sven? I was at Lutherwood," and then they introduce me to their family, or they tell me about a job that they have that's actually a good job, and it's just amazing what they say was important to them. It's not so much the buildings, it's the people.
Yeah.
And it's interesting who that could have been. It could have maybe been the director who maybe listened to it, or the therapist, but it might be our maintenance person, or it might be the cook, that they talk to. And so you never know. You never know who that person is. And we have seen so many children that have seen a trusting adult and were able to get attention from caring adults. That's another important thing. And so we have seen wonderful stories. And I always meet somebody in the community that says, "Hey, remember me?" I saw this one young lady. We had a play years ago with an opera director. He was the director of the opera. He came from the Netherlands, and we did some kind of wild play with him. It was really much more than we thought we could handle. And one of the young ladies who was in the play, I met her in the community, and she said, "Remember me? I was in the play." And I first had to think for a second, what play? Now, of course, it was the play with Nando from Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And that was her big point,
Yeah.
And so I wanted to tell you one of the things that motivated me to really get into the spiritual work much more with Brady's help than we ever done in many, many years.
Yeah.
Is I dug out together with our pastor an evaluation, a spiritual evaluation. And we started to do this with our kids. And one of the things that struck me is that there was a very high number that I could have never expected, that I think 80+% of our kids at Lutherwood are praying regularly. And for me, it was immediately the idea, I remembered church service and what are they praying about? And who helps them with prayer life? It's kind of maybe for many people like an automatic, what to pray and how to pray, but I think many people don't know exactly how this could work. And it would be great to have somebody come alongside. And I thought that was the moment where we said, hey, we have a real program here. There's already a program right with that to help young people with their prayer life and to come alongside them. And that's when our board and we decided to really focus on that.
I love it. I love it. What one thing I love about those stories, and even just getting to peek behind the curtain a little bit of your guys' journey, is just to know that how encouraging it is that to have someone come alongside you, and how you're continually learning. And I think all of us want our life to matter. We really do. You're listening to this podcast not because you had time to waste, but you're listening to this podcast because you want your life to matter. You want to make a difference. And here's an easy on road to know that you can come beside kids, let them find a trusting, caring, loving adult. Let them begin to imagine life a little bit different. Let them understand trust, understand hope, and maybe some of the journey that God has you on is part of your purpose, and a part of your life mattering is going to be that you're going to be a part of a kid's story that they're going to tell 10, 15, 20 years down the road about, fill in the blank of your name, this person that changed them, whether it's through a play, whether it's through prayer, whether it's through, cooking meals or helping clean up. It's basic things. We're not saying, hey, you got to come in here and do, full-blown trauma care with a kid.
Right.
It's
showing people the heart of God and just showing them basic love.
Actually, we would prefer that you not administer traumatic care. We would prefer that you leave that to the professionals.
Absolutely.
But to that point, though, and it's really very freeing, because then whenever I do volunteer orientation for groups that come in, I say to them, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be a professional. You just have to have two good ears, and even one good ear at that point if you're on the right side of them. So just have an ear that works so that you can listen to young people. And what's interesting is even our, probably one of our toughest demographics is our older high school age boys. But there's a couple of guys that volunteer from one of our local churches. They will ask me, hey, are so-and-so coming? Or, is this guy coming this time? And I want to say to them, hey, I'm right here in the room, but they really love when the volunteers come.
Yeah.
Because they give them this non-judgmental, I'm going to listen to you. And the volunteers are going to kind of keep it straight with the kids. They're not going to try to tell them what they want to hear. They're just going to say, look, here's kind of what it's like in the real world.
Yeah.
And here are some things to be thinking about, things that can help you. And we're not poo-pooing, obviously, the therapeutic side. That's super important. It's super critical for these kids to get that part figured out. But our volunteers come along, and as you said earlier, Sven, kind of like normal people.
Well, and I think the kids know that they don't have to be there, right?
Exactly.
That's right.
You guys are paid to be there. That's their job, the therapist.
Right.
But this person doesn't have to be here. They're choosing this time with me.
And that's so it's so impactful for me, too, as a spiritual life leader, because even me, they expect to hear certain things from.
Yeah.
But when the volunteers come in and they're echoing what I'm saying, then the kids look at me and kind of go, you talked about that in chapel the other day.
Yeah.
Or, hey, he just said the same thing you've been telling us. And so it's really, all of a sudden now it kind of sinks in on the kids, hey, this is really important stuff.
I love it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really like about the program, too, is what impact this has on our wonderful colleagues from community hospital that actually are working with the children.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see how this is important for the employees, to the teams that are working with the kids, to have this other perspective. And they know there's somebody else out in the community caring about what heavy lifting they do.
Yes.
And it's amazing how many times you're responding to prayer requests of our staff and to lift them up spiritually, and they have many questions too. And it's a great partnership between our spiritual approach and community hospitals' more mental health approach, and in that way professional approach. So we have over the last year since you have been there, ministering as much to the kids as we minister to the staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's something, guys, as we wrap up today, what's something that you guys would like to promote, maybe something going on or that the community can get involved in, or you just want people to know about that's going on?
The opportunity with us is working with kids, but there may be some people that say, wait a minute, that's maybe a little too close. But I still want to be involved. So we have opportunities to be involved on our wonderful campus, for groups to come in. We have many employers, some of our top employers in the community. There's an opportunity for the listeners to say, maybe I want to bring a group of maybe my colleagues or even my family or maybe my church community in, and we will, in conversation with you, find something that is meaningful.
Yeah.
And you will walk out with your group and you have learned something about something that you might have not really known. You might have read something on the front page of the newspaper about the opioid crisis and about all these kind of things. But how does this trickle down to children and to families, and how it can be changed in a positive way, and how spiritual life can play a very big role. So there are many different opportunities.
I think to tag on to that and to finish up too, I think if there was a person or persons or a group that's listening, and you said, hey, I want to learn more about that agency, Sven and I are more than happy to come visit you where you are. Certainly a visit to our facility is helpful and informational, but at the same time, we're okay coming out and giving kind of that behind-the-scenes look from their perspective, so that we can come to you, we can travel. I don't know that we want to travel to Texas, but give us some time and effort, and we can travel.
What's if they're maybe listening right now and they say, this is it, this is my next step? Obviously, they can go to activateindy.com and that can start the process. It's your one-stop shop.
Sure.
But if they want to come right to you guys, what's the best way to stay connected and be able to get some research with Luther Family
So
Service?
you can go to our website and you can look up our phone number, or 317-359-5467. Website is lutheranfamily.org. You can always come by and ask for Brady or Sven to see if we're around. And then we'll give you that physical tour of the facility and let you take a look at kind of what's happening there.
Right. I mean, that's the way. I mean, we are a secure facility, but at the same moment, we are open for people's ideas and wanting to help. And Brady mentioned the phone numbers. It's always good to ask for Brady or for myself, and we love to hear from you.
I love it. LutheranFamily.org is the website. LutheranFamily.org is where you go. Brady, Sven, it's been phenomenal to get to hear a little bit of your story, to see what's going on. I've met multiple people. I've known people that have worked with you guys through the years, and always hear amazing things about what you guys are doing in the community. I love that, finding partners that are bringing more faith, hope, and love to our great city. So activateindy.com is also your one-stop shop to see all 9 nonprofits that get involved in what's going on, to activate Indy to servanthood and to making a difference. And guys, I appreciate you being on the podcast today, and we'll appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Radio Theology Podcast. We'd love for you to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with a friend. Talk to you next time. But until then, don't forget, God is for you, not against you. He is near to you, not far away from you, and He has created you on purpose and for a purpose. Have a great day.